we just got the announcement for 3.5, which is going to have Daya and now Mika. By all intents and purposes of how Hoyoverse likes to do things, Baizhu should be coming out soon. Possibly. Now, I know some leaks from just my friends and just being on like YouTube and being in the Genshin community that, again, this is some spoilers, so if you don't want it, you might want to skip ahead a little bit, but he is rumored to be coming out in 3.6. So, I have been preparing like a motherfucker to get all the stuff that he might need. The thing is I don't know what he needs. So, I'm going to discuss what he might need in the future for raising, such as the sort of like plant-based item or things you can just pick up, along with the books, the weekly boss, the regular bosses, his items, and maybe his weapon stuff. All of this is just pure speculation. I have no information aside from that he might be coming out in 3.6. That's all I know. So, I want to get this out and then edit it before the leaks start popping out. Because I know my friends are going to show me all the things that, like, they find. So, I want to get my ideas out before that happens. First and foremost, Baizhu. He's obviously Dendro. If you've seen him in some of the cutscenes for both the Lantern Rite and the story for Lie, he has a Dendro vision. That's obvious. Now, I'm also going to be assuming that he is a 5-star. Because it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to be a 4-star. If he is a 4-star, I don't think he is, because I'm pretty sure he's not. But if he was, I would question why. But, first and foremost, he's going to need all the usual stuff that all the characters need. I'm going to assume by the time he comes out, they're not going to change how much books you need, how many of the boss drops, or the plants you need for raising. I'm assuming that's what they're not going to change that just yet. I hope they do to make it less intensive, but I'm assuming they're not going to. So, roughly, if you want to have a character at, like, C6, R5, Triple Crown, level 90, like I want to do, that's my goal. I don't think it's going to happen, but that is my ultimate goal. It's going to take 8.1 million more. Along with, like, 9 teachings, 63 guides, and 114 philosophies of whatever type of book he needs. Along with well over 200... Phone stop. Well over 200 of the stuff. Of, like, the boss drops. First and foremost, the plants. Now, I discussed some of this with a friend. Like, oh, what do you think Baizhu is going to need? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 possibilities currently in the game. I'm also going to somewhat assume that when he comes out, that there's not going to be any new plants. Now, if there is, it's going to suck. My official guess would either be Violet Grass, because Chi-Chi also needs them, and they both work at the same pharmacy, so that would be my number 1 guess. Number 2 would be Silk Flowers. The reason being is both of those have only 2 characters in it, and I'm assuming that they're not going to give him Core Lapis or Jinxin, who both have 3 characters per. Along with Yao Yao, who is the only other Dendro character in Lie, is now going to use Jueyun chilies, and so does Xiangling, so I'm going to assume that's not what he's going to need. So, Violet Grass or Silk Flower. Book-wise, I think he's going to need Prosperity. Mostly because of his profession, it would make the most sense. I would also assume the second best guess would be Gold, but I don't think he's going to need Diligence. But as I say that, I'm questioning it, whether or not I agree with that all the way. No, but again, top number 1 would be Prosperity. Let me find it. It's somewhere in here. Yeah, these ones. The teachings, the guides, and the philosophies. That's my number 1 guess. Second guess would be Mora, and then Diligence is the third. I don't think it's going to be Diligence. Now, I did look up some pictures for the, thumbnail, and I did see that there's a possibility that he might be a Catalyst user, so that might be a spoiler. Now, I was thinking that Catalyst does make the most sense for his A, profession, and B, it's also because in one of Chi-Chi's, voice lines, it says that he is weaker than she is, and she's a zombie, so that would make the most sense physically for him to just be a Catalyst user. I was also thinking he might be a sword user, but since I learned that Alhaitham is also a sword user, that's not going to be the case. Now, this is just a fun thing I was thinking about, but he could have been a Claymore user. Hear me out. Hear me out. By the time Yayo comes out, we will have all of the Dendro weapons aside from Claymore. So that was my thought process. Now, I understand that he's technically weaker than Chi-Chi, but we also have Dory, he uses a genie to wield her Claymore. So, he might use a snake to wield a Claymore. Again, he's probably his catalyst. It makes the most sense, but I just thought that was funny. It's a great thought, but probably not going to happen. For some reason, I'm feeling like he might use Gloomy Statuette for his weapon, but there's too many, like, items to go through then. So I'm just going to say it's catalyst, and he's probably going to share the, mats he uses to level up for his weapon. That's my guess. Role. What is he going to actually be? I want to say he's a DPS. I really want to, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm going to assume he's going to be healer, because again, his profession, he works at a pharmacy. It would make the most sense. I would want to say healer support, like he leans towards both, because we now have Yao Yao, who is also a healer, but she's also Dendro. So it would be weird if because they can both fill the same spot as a support healer, technically. So I'm starting to question if they're going to have two Dendro characters back to back who are both healer supports or healers. So he may instead be a healer or just a full support. But I'm going to assume some type of healer. I want him to be a DPS, but it's probably not going to happen. What kind of items is he going to need to level up? Now, again, I had a discussion with one of my friends about this. There's a few that it could be, but he made the suggestion that it would be the Hilichurl scrolls, which would be these. Now, I would agree, because, like, again, I keep mentioning the fact he works at a pharmacy. It makes the most sense. Like, you write a prescription on a scroll, hand it to somebody, it makes sense. Other ones that I would think that he might need, that would make somewhat sense, depending. If he's a catalyst user, leyline branches would also make sense, because they drop off mages, and mages are purely sort of like catalyst-esque. I feel like that would make the most sense. Also, another one that I thought would make the most sense would be Whopper Flower Nectar. The reason being is because you can maybe use these in sort of like healing salves or something like that. That would make more sense. Also, Slime Condensate would also work fairly well, because again, excuse me, and it also says that most commonly seen material in elemental workshops. This may not be like an elemental workshop, but it makes sense for like a healing salve or maybe some sort of paste. Maybe something. It's apparently edible, because you can eat this. So maybe it could be like eaten to help with medicine, maybe. Another one that I thought would make sense, because I've heard rumors that he may be from Sumeru instead of Liye. So another thought that he might need the nucleus, either the inactivated ones or the spores. He might need one of these as well. That would make, again, sense, because these are mostly in Sumeru. They're also in the chasm too. Well, these ones, not these ones, I don't think. No, yeah, they are, because they drop from fungi. Never mind. I was thinking before we got Sumeru. But these also might make sense, because they're from the chasm. The chasm is in Liye, and I'm assuming that most of his stuff is going to be from Liye, aside from maybe the boss. Maybe. The last one that I thought would be interesting, and I thought would make some sense, even though my friend disagreed with me, which is totally fine, but I just want to throw it out there. Bone shards. Since this one's called a fragile bone shard, and he's also, like, you could describe him as fragile, possibly, that it may make sense. On top of that, you can use bone shards in medicine, I think. Maybe not in current medicine. But I know, like, in the past, there was a possibility people use, like, bones. So you can also predict the future using bones, because I know that's a thing. So I was like, you know what? It may be the least likely on the list, but I still thought I wanted to, like, throw that out there just in case. What boss drop would he need? So, this is also a bit interesting, because we're getting a new boss, but Alhaitham needs that boss. So I'm going to assume that since Baizhu has been not in the game, but he has been a character that's existed in the game for a while. That he might need just ones back in Ligue, because it's been a while since we need someone who's just in Ligue. So one of the ones that my friend brought up was the Primo Giovishet, and that would make sense, especially because I can only think of 2 or 3 characters who need it. And I'm assuming they might bring it back for this character. Plus, it's also multi-elemental. You can have 4 different elements, and you could pick up each element every time you fight it. Like if it's Cryo, you could pick up Cryo, Pyro, so on and so forth. Another one is a Dendro Cube. That was my idea. The reason being is because he's Dendro, and he's a Catalyst user, similar to Nahida. Or I'm assuming he's a Catalyst user, similar to Nahida. So it would make the most sense for him to use that drop. Or, because there might be a new boss incoming, another new boss, not positive, he could also use the Dendro Regisvine, if we get one of those by the time he comes out. Because it is going to be 2 patches, roughly, if it is 3.6 that he comes out. We might get a new boss, and there might be the Dendro Regisvine. That could also be an option. Also, there's also the Jade Plume Terrashroom. I don't think he's going to need that one, because we have 2 Dendro characters who are both bow users, Tignari and Kale, who both need that, and they came out the same patch. I don't think they're going to have him use that boss again. Maybe the next Dendro character after him would. That would make sense, but I don't think so. Finally, the weekly boss. So, I was originally thinking, for some reason, Raiden or Scaramouche, simply because they're some of the newer bosses that we've gotten. But as I was talking to my friend, he mentioned that from when we got Senor to when we got the Raiden boss was roughly 3 patches. And from the time we've gotten the last boss, Scaramouche, it'll be 3 patches. So there might be a new weekly boss that comes in. He might need that one. That is one of my main guesses. But if he needs one from Ligue, there's only 2 options, Azdaha and Child. I would think that he would probably need Azdaha more. But Child is still a possibility, so I'm not going to throw it out. I still want to say it's going to be either Scaramouche, Azdaha, the new boss, if we get one, we might not, and then Child. Those are my 4 main guesses. It could also be neither of these, or none of these. It could be like some other boss, who knows. Did I have anything else I wanted to mention before I ended this? This is a lot shorter. I had this way more organized in my head, I swear. But these are just my general thoughts on what I think he might need. Again, he's probably going to be a Catalyst user. He's most likely going to be Healer. It makes the most sense. He's probably going to need Violet Grass or Silk Flowers. Weekly boss, still unknown, but he could use Azda, Child, Raiden, or Scaramouche. Boss-wise, he could use the Primo Giovishet, the Dendro Cube, or Regisvine if we get that by the time he comes out. Maybe the Jade Plume Terrashroom. He could use multitude of items, such as the scrolls, the Leyline branches, Whopper Flower Nectar, Slime Condensate, Spores are the nucleus, or the nuclei, and then the Bone Shards. Weapon stuff, I want to assume, again, he wants to use the Gleaming Statuettes. These, because you can find them in the chasm. And finally, his books. Main guess is Prosperity, second guess is Gold. I don't think he's going to use Vigilance. Those are my final thoughts. Again, this could all be horribly wrong, but I can't wait to see if I'm right or wrong on this. It'd be cool if I'm right on like half of it. Anyway, I'm going to go and edit this probably in the future. Again, it's not going to be that long. I'm going to play with my friend before the next patch comes. And then pray for my friend who is pulling for all Hatham. Anyway, all of you, be safe, make good choices. I'm going to go and continue my hoard of stuff for Baizhu.